Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, my name is Wendy, and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at places like garage sales, thrift stores, anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for January 21st through 27th. Before we get started, a couple of disclosures. We do sell part-time or not full-time resellers. We own another business, and I also have a job working part-time for another company. This is our side hustle, but we do earn a significant part of our income from doing this side hustle. So if you're interested in a side hustle where you can make some good extra income, reselling is definitely something to consider. Another quick note. The net profit that you see on the screen does not include the cost of any of our shipping supplies, and it also does not include any of our annual taxes that we have to pay. So just a quick note on that. Now let's dive in to what sold. Okay, the first thing that we sold was a women's plus size peasant blouse. We got this a while ago at a garage sale for $3. It sold for $15.18 on offer to buyer. Next up was a genuine OEM ink cartridge from the brand HP. It was new in the package and sealed, but it was expired. This we got at a garage sale for $1 and it sold for $13 even. Just a quick note on HP ink. I did note recently in a news article that HP is going to be putting some kind of chips or something into their printers to make it impossible to use remanufactured ink cartridges in the future. So genuine OEM HP ink may become more valuable. That's just something to be on the lookout for. I don't know if it will increase the value of expired or just, OEM HP ink at all, or what's going to happen with that. But those are the kinds of news stories that I try to pay attention to that might affect reselling. So, I'm not going to pull any of our HP ink out for our garage sale, even if it hasn't sold for a long time, just in case that change that they're making does affect the resale value of their genuine ink. I'm just going to leave it in our store for a little while and kind of see what happens with that. So just something to think about when you're looking at the news. Consider how current events and things like that might affect reselling. Okay, next up was a Lego Duplo Buzz Lightyear minifig. This we got out of a thrift store toy bag for just 14 cents and it sold for $8 even on best offer. Next up was a pair of women's Clark's clogs. We got these for a whopping $12.71 at the thrift store a while ago. This was a long time ago, very early in our reselling sourcing days, and we did sell them very quickly. We sold them fast when we first listed them, but unfortunately they were returned to us, and I remember the buyer gave a weird comment about them. They said they were too heavy or something, which I thought was an unusual complaint, but we did accept the return and they got returned back to us. But because we had spent so much on them, because they weren't really worth that much, we did end up losing money overall on these with this second sale, but definitely recouped more than we would have if we had put these in the garage sale. Okay, next up was a vintage 1994, obviously vintage, it was a VHS. This was Disney's Favorite Stories, The Prince and the Pauper. We got this out of a storage unit for just 23 cents and it sold for $9.99. Next up was a really good sale. This was an OEM Beauty Rest Biltmore blanket replacement power cord for a heated blanket. And we found this in the Goodwill bins for $1.03, and this sold for $42.99. That's why we always check branded replacement cords, because you never know which ones are going to be super valuable. Next up was a vintage 1978 Parker Brothers Battlestar Galactica board game. It was complete. We got this at a garage sale for $3, and it sold for $30 even on best offer. Next up was a DVD of a Monster High show called Haunted. We tested it and it worked. We got this out of the most recent storage unit that we purchased for $1.16. I mean, each of the items from that unit was $1.16. I wish we had paid $1.16 for that whole unit. And this DVD sold for $9 even on best offer, and it sold pretty fast. Next up was another item that came from that storage unit. This was a lot of 3 very, very, very broken Apple iPads. It had 2 second generation iPads and 1 6th generation iPad, and a box that went along with it. I mean, these things look like they had been run over. It was crazy. I've never seen devices that broken. So we had paid $1.16 for these, and they sold on auction. I think we did them on auction, and the buyer was all in for $16.34. Next up was a basketball card. This was one of Kevin's from his collection. This was a 1993-94 Top Stadium Club basketball for the player Todd Day. That sold for $2.39. Next up was a 2010 Fisher-Price Little People Yellow Wheelies Bulldozer. We got this out of a thrift store toy bag for 19 cents, and this sold for just $6.93, but we still made profit on it, and just getting rid of all that old stuff. Y'all, we have not listed anything since the first week of January. This is all from just doing end item and sell similar through our annual inventory, and that's how we're selling everything right now. So the fact that we're selling anything and that we're selling this much stuff just blows my mind. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment to pause and talk about our topic for the day, and that is why your gross sales number on eBay might not match your gross sales number that you keep track of through your spreadsheet or through your financial software, or however you keep track of your data for your reselling. So I ran into this issue because we keep track of all of our information on a spreadsheet created by Ginger Marvin, and I've talked about this in several videos before. It's a really awesome spreadsheet. You can go to their YouTube channel and find out how to download that and get information about how to use it. It's a free resource that they provide to resellers. It's really awesome. We love it. It has helped our business out so much. But I went to my spreadsheet and looked at my gross sales number for last year, the year of 2023, and was kind of comparing that to the gross sales number on eBay. And the two numbers didn't really square up, and I was trying to figure out why that was. And I had also noticed that someone had made a similar comment about that on one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of. And then also a friend of mine had asked me the same question through a private message, and we were talking about that as well. So I did kind of dig into that a little bit to find out why that was, and you might have wondered the same thing, so I thought I'd share what I found out. So the number on eBay, not only does it include shipping, which we did record and I did have that information included in my gross sales number, but the other thing that eBay tracks and includes in your gross sales is tax that they collect on your behalf. So that number might be bigger on eBay than what you show because of the tax that eBay collects on your behalf and then pays in. You don't ever have to worry about taking care of any tax payments or anything like that because eBay takes care of all of that for you. But that gross sales number that they do show you on your seller tools or on your sales page does include sales tax. So that's why that number might not match up exactly with what number you have. And so I wanted to share what I had found out when doing that research. Okay, moving on. The next item that we sold was a 2006 Blizzard Entertainment World of Warcraft The Burning Crusade 3-ring binder. We found this in the Goodwill bins for 67 cents, and it sold for $18.38. We had had this listed for a while and did the end item and sell similar, and then it sold immediately. And I did lower the price a little bit. So either it just needed to be refreshed and get in front of some new eyes, or I had it overpriced a little bit. Next up was a 5-pack of 4-inch hand-blown glass teardrop Christmas tree ornaments. We found this at a thrift store. We paid $1.61 for these, and they sold for $14.50. Next up was a vintage 1960s and 70s lot of 51, and that's a lot, Girl Scout patches from multiple different troops and councils. Lots of places all over the United States. We found this at our local Honey Hole thrift store for $3.24, and this sold for $50.38. Next up was a GoPro Hero 4 8-megapixel waterproof action camera with a case, mount, manual, and box. We tested it and it worked. I found this at a church rummage sale the second day we went to this rummage sale. It was in a bag underneath a table, like jammed down in this plastic bag. Probably nobody was even looking in the bag. I was so shocked when I opened up that bag and I was like, there's a GoPro in here. I was very pleasantly surprised. So definitely we grabbed that. We paid $3.25 for that, and it sold for $114.99. Next up was the vintage 90s Y2K Jinko Jeans men's tribal tiger embroidered hoodie. We got this at a garage sale for $10 and it sold for $110. We actually sold this previously and unfortunately it was returned due to a fit issue, but it did sell again and this time the buyer seems happy with it. We haven't had any issues and so I think it's at its forever home. Okay, next up was a Trader Joe's lime green by appointment only reusable shopping bag. This is the second Trader Joe's reusable shopping bag that we've sold, and every time I've ever comped these, I've noticed that they have a really good sell-through rate. So if you ever find any reusable Trader Joe's shopping bags, they're probably worth picking up for the right price. This one we got at a thrift store for $2.16 and it sold for $22.49. Next up was a manual typewriter by a brand called We Are Memory Keepers, and it did have some issues. It, like the striker didn't always go all the way on some of the buttons, and I don't remember exactly what all the other issues are, but like I think the space bar, the striker didn't hit all the way, and it had some other little issues, and we disclosed all of that. We had gotten this at a garage sale for $10 and it sold for $79.99. Some typewriters can be very, very valuable, so definitely be on the lookout for typewriters and comp them if you see them, but do keep in mind that typewriters can be very, very difficult to ship, so that is something to consider. Next up was one of my daughter's old shirts that she gave to us to sell. So this was a Dickies mock neck embroidered logo sweatshirt. It was actually a men's, but she wore it. So that sold for $21.24. Next up was one of Kevin's old cards. This was a 1994 Scry magazine promo card called The Obedience of Noah, and that sold for $4.99. Next up was another one of Kevin's cards. This was a 1992 Fleer baseball card for the player Jack McDowell, and that sold for $2.29. Next up was an Old Navy athletic tank top, and it said, "Does running late count as exercise?" This came out of the Facebook Marketplace garbage bags of clothes. We paid 67 cents for this and it sold for $10.38. Next up was an Eagle Creek Travel Gear Undercover Money Deluxe Security Belt. This was one of those money belts that you wear underneath your clothes for travel purposes to keep your money hidden and safe from pickpocketers. This was new in the package. We found this at a garage sale for $2.40 and it sold for $13.64. Next up was a glitter purple insulated double wall premium espresso cup by the brand Coldest. It was new in the box. We had gotten this at a garage sale for $2 and it sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer. Next up, I am going to announce the winner of our Nina's Jewels t-shirt, and that winner is Thrifting Tiger. Congratulations, Gary. You're the big winner. I was very happy when I saw your name come up because Gary really supports our channel and we're super appreciative of that. So Gary, reach out to us in the email address that's listed in the description box below. Let us know what size you prefer and we will get that shipped out to you soon. And if you're interested in winning a Nina's Jewels t-shirt, all you have to do is be subscribed to our channel and drop a comment on this video down below and you will be entered to win. We will announce the winner on our next What Sold video, so make sure you stay tuned to find out if you're the winner. And also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be informed of when our next video posts so you don't miss out to find out whether or not you won. Okay, next up was the power cord from the CPAP machine that we found in that storage unit. We did attempt to sell this CPAP machine to Second Wind, but this was not a model that they're currently accepting, so we couldn't sell it to them. And you cannot sell CPAP machines on any other platforms because it is a prescription item. So the next best thing that we were able to do was to part it out, and the only part that we were able to salvage off of this particular unit was the power cord, but it did sell. So we had paid just 26 cents for this item out of that storage unit, and it sold pretty quickly for $24.99. Next up was another one of Kevin's collectible cards. This was a Topps Finest Refractor card for the player Jeff Facero. This sold for $5.99. Next up was some fabric left over from a project that I had many years ago. This was some white silky satin fabric, and it sold for $10.38. Next up was some more fabric that sold. This was 2 pieces of something called Rip Hippie Black, Red, and Gold Floral fabric. This was also mine left over from a project, and that fabric sold for $10.59. Next up was a 1995 starting lineup figure. It was a hockey figure for the player John Van Beesbrook. I hope I said that right. And that sold for $6.50. We had gotten that out of a thrift store toy bag. We paid just 10 cents for it. Next up was a 2002 Jack Daniel's Whiskey Hip Flask. We found this in the Goodwill bins for $1.18, and that sold for $13.58 on offer to buyer. Next up was a brand new and packaged Kurt Adler 10 light chili pepper set of, I guess they might be Christmas lights, but they could be just like year-round decorative lights. And we had gotten these at a garage sale for $1, and they sold for $22.49. And we actually got 3 packages of these. And I had decided to do them as a quantity listing. I was surprised they didn't buy more. Maybe I just should have listed them as a lot. I don't know. But they only purchased 1 package, so we still have 2 packages left. So we actually made all of our money back on purchasing these just off that 1 box. So that worked out. Next up was a vintage White River fly fishing classic bass fly tying kit. I had found this in the Goodwill bins. I found a bunch of little Ziploc bags filled with little feathers and things like that, and I thought they were interesting, so I started picking them up. Then I found a cardboard box that showed that it was all fly fishing stuff, and a lot of fishing items can be valuable, especially fly fishing items. So then I started really digging through that bin and trying to find all of the fly fishing stuff, and we found a lot of it, but obviously we didn't find everything, so it was incomplete. We listed it, and it did take a while to sell, but we had paid only $1.03 for it that day, and it sold for $22.48. So it was worth my time to dig through that bin and find everything. Next up was a vintage photo processing formulas. This was just honestly, I can't believe this sold, but this is why we list everything. This came from that big photography lot that we got at a church rummage sale, and this was just photocopies of photo processing formulas. And it was just a big stack of someone's, formulas that they had typed out and copied on a photocopier, but, they were maybe vintage formulas or maybe something that wouldn't be easy to look up online. It just had a lot of really good information that someone who is a photographer might be interested in having. So I looked at it, and at first I was just going to recycle all those papers, and then I was like, you know what? I don't know how easy it is to find this information, and there might be some really specific detailed information about how to process certain photos a certain way in here that somebody might be interested in having, so I'm just going to list it and see what happens. And it sold. We had paid $1 for that at the rummage sale, and it sold for $12.68. And that was just easy to list. We just kind of splayed those photos out and took a picture, and that was super easy, so that was worth our time. Even though we didn't make huge profit on it, it's just like, better than recycling it for sure. Somebody's getting use out of it. Okay, next up was a lot of 7 VHS tapes called The Beginner's Bible. They were by Time Life Kids, and they featured Kathy Lee Gifford. We found this at a thrift store for $1.89, and they sold for $19.99. Next up was a genuine OEM Epson projector remote control. We got this at a thrift store for $4.32, and it sold for $28. Any kind of remote control that's like really specific for a real specific item, not just a TV or something like that. This was for a projector. Those are hard to find and definitely will sell for more money generally. Okay, next up was the second of the jewelry scrap lots that we sold from that storage unit. This one sold for a lot more. I don't know if it was just the timing of when we listed it or if this one looked better to people. I don't know what the deal with it was, but this we listed exactly the same way as the other one. It was just lot B, and we had paid $1.16 for it. It was 14 pounds of unsearched jewelry, and it really was. We did not even look through it. And this one sold on auction for $80 even, and we got positive feedback actually on both of those jewelry lots. So in a similar situation, if we ever find a big bulk box of jewelry in a storage unit or at a garage sale or something, and it doesn't seem like something that might have something of really significant value in it, we are definitely going to do it this way again because this made us some good money and was so easy. So easy. Okay, next up was a 6-inch plush Care Bear. We got this from someone who is just giving away free plush on Facebook Marketplace. It was right near our house. They had it listed for free to the first person who came and picked it up, and that was me. So I had no cost, and this sold for $7.24. Okay, next up was yet another one of those items that I relisted and intended to do calculated shipping on, and somehow it got defaulted back to free shipping. So I don't know what's going on with that, because here's what I think is happening. I am going in and updating it to calculated shipping, and then I think I'm just going and clicking list item too quickly after I do that, because sometimes it just takes a minute for eBay to accept that you've made that change, or you have to change it and then kind of click outside of that field for it to take in the eBay system. Anyway, this item sold for a low price plus free shipping, and that was, I'm sure, due to user error on my part. But when that happens, we just honor the sale and go ahead and send it to the buyer, because definitely losing the $4.37 that we lost on this sale was much easier to deal with than having to cancel the sale and take the hit on our account or risk getting negative feedback from them. So that's just what we did. Let me know in the comments below how you guys would handle it. I do have a few more that are gonna, I think at least 2 more that are gonna come up in future What Sold videos where the same thing happened, but now I think we've actually taken care of making sure that there are no more issues like that. But that has been extremely frustrating because I know for sure that I actually went in and made all of those changes. So I don't know exactly where the hiccup happened, but I suspect that I was just moving too fast and the eBay app could not keep up with me, and it was just defaulting it back to free shipping even after I changed it. So just be on the lookout for that, because that has happened to me not only on this issue with the free shipping, but sometimes we will copy a listing that we use just as a draft, and I'll work from that to create new listings, and that default draft always has a starting price of $9.99, and it's happened to us on more than one occasion where I've gone in and changed that price of $9.99 to $32.99 or $19.99 or whatever the price of our item is. And then if I don't click outside of that field somewhere, within that app, or wait long enough to list the item, if I'm moving too quickly and I don't do it exactly right, it will default it back to $9.99. That's happened to me on a number of occasions too. So I do try to go as quickly as I can when I'm listing stuff, because obviously time is money and I'm trying to move very quickly. But I just try to double and triple check things now as much as possible without it slowing me down too much. Moving on, I don't want to spend too much time on this silly mistake that we made. The next thing up was a lot of 2 Hawaii tour VHS tapes. They were both new and sealed. This is another thing I think probably sold because of possibly all of the fires that took place in Hawaii. This probably shows a lot of footage of the way Hawaii used to look. I don't know. It's just we've had this listed for quite a long time, and then it just sold out of the blue even before we relisted it. So I'm just wondering if maybe, you know, this was related to current events. This is exactly what I was talking about previously when I was talking about the HP cartridges. This is the kind of thing I mean. So we had gotten these at a thrift store for 39 cents and they sold for $17.99. That was our full asking price. Next up was a men's camo t-shirt by the brand Game Winner. We found this in the Goodwill bins for $1.68 and it sold for $11.14. Next up was a women's boho wool blend fur Sherpa vest by the brand Love Tree. We found this in the bins for $1.68 and it sold for $19.99. Next up was one of Nina's old dresses. This we've had listed forever. I relisted it, did sell similar, and it sold. The brand was Cuter, and it was a pink tie-dye ruffle cotton knit sundress. This was handed down to her, so we didn't have any cost, and it sold for $9.39. Next up was a 1959 Hanes Yellowstone National Park guide with a fold-out map. We got this at a thrift store for $1.03 and it sold for $22.99. Next up was a rotating Belgian waffle maker new in the package by the brand Bella. We paid too much for this at a garage sale. We paid $15 for it. It did sell finally for our full asking price minus a discount, I think, of $39.59. We did get a little bit of profit on that, but really we just spent too much on it up front. If we had only spent like $5 or something on it, it would have been much better. I don't know why we paid so much for it. Maybe we had comped it and thought that it was going to sell for more. Not sure. I can't remember. Okay, next up was a puzzle pad kit by the brand Genevega. That we got at a garage sale for $1 and it sold for $22.49. Next up was a cardigan sweater by the brand H&M. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member and it sold for $15 even. Next up was a train set by the brand Toytech Tempo, and it was a diesel hauler train set. It did have some issues. One of the track pieces had been broken and repaired and we could not get the engine to run. We replaced the batteries, or maybe we couldn't figure out how to replace the batteries, but either way we couldn't get the engine to run, so we did disclose that. It was just sold as is. We found this at the Goodwill in Galveston when we had gone down before we embarked on our Caribbean cruise, and we did record that trip, and so you can see us picking up that train on that video. We also stopped and met with Cha-Ching King on our way down, and we went to an antique store, so if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description box below. But we had gotten this train at the Goodwill for $5.15 and it sold pretty quickly for $47 even. Next up was another one of Kevin's cards. This was a baseball card of Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco, and that sold for $2.39. Next up was a brand new and packaged Lion brand yarn. We had gotten that out of the bins for 67 cents and it sold for $15.94. Next up was a portable Insignia CD player. We tested it and it worked, but it did not have any headphones. We got that at an estate sale for $2 and it sold for $19.98. And I will generally pick up any portable CD players or cassette players if I can get them for the right price because they have always sold well for us. Next up was a pair of women's UGG boots. They were a very small size, women's 5, so they did take a little while to sell, but they were in good condition. And we had gotten those at a garage sale for $3.28. They sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a decorative resin figurine, and it was found in a storage unit for 23 cents. And I love selling stuff like this because like I could not find, I don't think I found any other listings of this exact item. So I feel like either somebody was purchasing this because they broke one that they owned, or they found it online and they really, really liked it. I just always find that when I list stuff like this, it's going to somebody who really wants it. At least that's like how I've built it up in my mind. So this is the kind of thing I really like to sell, is like when we have the only one of something like this. This we had paid 23 cents for, and it sold for $28.79. Next up was a 2001 Rand McNally San Antonio laminated transportation map. We found that at a garage sale in that big box of maps. We paid $5 for the whole box, and each of the maps broke down to a cost of just 9 cents each. We have made a lot of money on that box. This map sold for $19.99. Next up was a vintage Springbok cats puzzle. It was, I think it was used, because I don't have new on the title, but honestly I can't remember. And it was 1,000 pieces. I know for sure it was definitely used. We picked it up and Kevin and I did the puzzle ourselves and then took a picture of it. We got this at the thrift store for 81 cents and it sold for $29.99. Next up was a Build-A-Bear outfit. It was a yellow chenille Easter chick or duck outfit. I couldn't tell for sure if it was a chick or a duck. I think when I looked it up it was actually a duck, but since I couldn't tell, I put chick in the title too. We had gotten this out of that big Build-A-Bear lot that we purchased, where each of the items came out to $1, and this sold for $31. I have found that the fuzzy, fluffy chenille kind of plush looking Build-A-Bear outfits tend to be more valuable than the non, fuzzy plushy ones, if that makes sense. Next up was an IKEA Skogs Lover gray roller light filtering fabric window shade. It was new in the box. We got that at a garage sale for $10 and it sold for $54. Most of the time we do pick up new in the package IKEA stuff because they discontinue their items often, and sometimes people are looking for them, especially home decor items, because people will try to match stuff that they already have, and then if they can't find it at IKEA, they'll turn to eBay to look for it, and you can make a lot of money on that. Next up was a Disney exclusive Year of a Million Dreams Mickey and Minnie Mouse trading pin. We got this at a garage sale for 50 cents and it sold for $12.50. Next up was a set of 2 Pottery Barn pillow shams. We found these at a thrift store for $3.54 and they sold for $59.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a Logitech corded mouse. We were gifted this to sell by a family member, so we had no cost, and it sold for $11.98. Next up was a Williams-Sonoma 5-piece vegetable garden salad dressing bowl and 4-plate set. We found this in the Goodwill bin. Surprisingly, it was not broken. We paid just 68 cents for it, and it sold for $28.48. And we had something kind of weird happen because the buyer reached out to us and said that we had not included the bowl. They said it was not in there, and what were we going to do about it, kind of. And I knew that wasn't the case because I actually helped Kevin pack this item up, and I knew that we had put the bowl in. But I did, just to be extra cautious, I did go back and double check in the bin to make sure it didn't get left in there, even though I knew that wasn't a possibility, because the way we pack things up when we list something is we pack it up, we wrap, like on this, we wrapped each of the bowls in bubble wrap, and then we put all of the pieces that go with that listing into one bag so that we can't accidentally leave something behind. So that when the person who picks that order grabs that item, if there's multiple pieces that go with it, they're all bundled in one package. And that actually prevents something exactly like what this person stated happened from happening when you pull something from our inventory. It's all bundled together, it's all within one bag, and something accidentally can't get left behind unless the bag were to bust open or something within the bin. So I knew for sure that that piece had gotten packed in there because I personally wrapped it up myself and we placed it in the box together. So I responded back to them and let them know that it was actually packed in the box and asked them to please carefully unwrap all of the packing material to make sure that, it just didn't accidentally get tossed aside thinking it was packing material, because we do wrap everything really, really well. They responded back immediately and said no, it wasn't in there and that they had unwrapped everything. And I responded back and asked if the package had been tampered with. Did it look like someone had opened the package and stolen something out of it, which would have been highly unusual for them to just steal one item out of the package. You would think that they would take everything. And they said no, it had not been tampered with and it was wrapped really well. So at that point, I just assured them that the item was definitely in there, but that if they did have any issues, they were welcome to open a case on eBay and that we would take it from there. And then I went on to ask them to please retain all of the packaging associated with the package, because there would be a possibility that it would need to be inspected by a postal inspector. Just in case we had to file a claim with the post office over the issue, there is a possibility that a postal inspector would have to inspect the package. And also, just in case they were trying to fish for a refund or something, that they realize that I'm not just going to give them a refund, that I am going to take this a step further and they're going to be required to take action on their part. And at that point, I did not hear back from them. We didn't hear any other messages. They did not open a case. And a day later, we actually got positive feedback from them on the item. They said they really liked it and that they got excellent customer service. So that was very confusing for us. We weren't really sure what to make of it. I don't know if they found the item in the box and maybe were embarrassed to respond back to us, or if they were actually just fishing for a refund and decided that it wasn't worth the trouble to continue to pursue that. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. I don't really know what happened in this case. I'm definitely not accusing them of anything. I'm just saying I don't really know what the situation was, and it was just unusual. Okay, next up was a pair of men's American Eagle jeans. These we got out of the Goodwill bins for $2.50 and they sold for $25 even. Next up was a really cute handmade yellow and gray ceramic bearded fisherman 3D coffee mug. We got this at a rummage sale for $3.25 and it sold for $26.99. Next up was a Hot Wheels brand new and packaged twin mill die-cast car. The packaging had seen better days, but the car inside was brand new. We found this at that recent storage unit that we purchased and we got it for $1.16. And this car sold for just $7.98, but it sold fast and it was an easy list. Next up was a vintage Whammo Frisbee 175-gram flying disc. We got this also in that storage unit for $1.16 and it sold for $16.99. And last up was one of Kevin's cards. This was a 1993 Don Russ baseball card for the player Dennis Eckersley, and that card sold for $2.29. And as you can see, we had a really good sales week. We sold 65 items for an average sale price of $23.81. Our sales totaled $1,547.80, and that made for a net profit of $771.49. Unfortunately, I'll just give you a quick spoiler alert that sales have not continued to be this great, although considering that we haven't listed anything, I'm just impressed that we are selling as much as we are. But stay tuned to find out what we sold next week, and make sure that you drop a comment below to try to win a Nina's Jewels t-shirt, and stay tuned to the next What Sold to see if you won and find out what we sold. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining, and we will catch you on the flip side.